I saw there's a new OVA I think out for Dorohedoro.
Oh, is there? That's
Yeah.
cool.
Because I was looking through Netflix recently and I saw that there was like new episodes. I'm like, oh, season 2, and it's like not yet, but there is a 13th episode now, so I do want to check that out probably in the next week or so.
That'd be cool. It's the appropriate season too, because Dorohedoro would be like, it does kind of have that fun semi-spooky gothic feel to it.
Yes,
it
more
just makes you
Halloween pandering.
like, yeah, it feels like everybody's wearing a mask in that. Well, they literally are, but even when they're not, it feels like they're wearing a mask in that show.
Yeah, nah.
So that makes sense. I mean, the main character literally wears a Voorhees mask, doesn't she?
The blonde chick, I don't think so.
Chick. I thought she wears like a big hockey mask.
Nah.
She does. She
doesn't wear any mask.
Totally
I thought.
does. No, she does. She totally does. You're fucking stupid.
All right, it's probably just skipping the memory right now.
Yeah. No, she wears a hockey mask.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm probably forgetting then.
Yeah. But yeah, so that'd be fun.
Yeah.
There's not really that much Halloween in anime or like Halloween spooky style stuff.
There is in the season, yeah.
Yeah, is there? I can't think of any, to be quite honest.
Well, I'll tell you about it as we start this podcast episode.
Oh my god.
What is up, Internet? It's your boys Brando and Christopher House. Welcome to the Otaku Remix Podcast. Chris, how are you?
Doing okay. We're at half an hour past when we were supposed to get started, so energies are average, and we're just gonna power through with this one.
Man, you're just gonna throw shade.
I am gonna throw shade
because
you scheduled it. You fucking bitch.
How it's supposed to be like a day past when we were supposed to record actually, because someone fuck up his computer, but it's whatever.
Yeah, somebody messed that up, but at the same time, it's like one has technical issues and the other just has to fix his little Gundams.
Yo, the Gundams fell over. I'm moving shit in my room. Is it another? It's an accident.
How many Gundams do you have?
How many Gundams do I own? That's a good question. I want to say 11 off the top of my head. In that range. I want to say 11 or 12.
Wow. And each one hand built meticulously.
Yes. I crafted every element of them. None of the parts were factory made. I created the plastic myself in a lab.
Oh my God.
But no, yeah, I did it.
Wow. We are two sassy bitches today. Right off the bat.
But we were talking about anime, and we were talking about...
Yeah, we are talking about anime.
We were talking about
we've been having two different schedules right now because we're not really watching the same thing at the moment.
No, not at all.
Which I'm cool with. It gets us a wider net of things to talk about.
Yeah, so to speak. But yeah,
it also makes the summary section a lot less boring for the person not going over the summary.
So that we each have something to talk about, or at least learn from the other. Well, yeah. To answer and to finish up that thought. As far as horror, not a whole lot that comes to mind. Actually, I still have to add something else. Actually, I just thought of mine that we could talk about today. But one is obviously I don't know if you ever watched the original. You probably didn't. But Higurashi, When They Cry. I've mentioned it to you before. The remake is out right now from the 06 anime. Probably one of the few, and definitely the first horror anime that I've ever liked or watched. And there'll be a formal video talking about this in the near future. Hopefully before the spooky trending hashtags are gone, so that I can capitalize on the Spooktober month. But it's a good horror anime. I think that you'd probably like it. It's incredibly well written, and I think that. But the new 2020 remake is so strange, especially seeing it through my eyes.
Okay,
and just
what makes it strange?
So
right off the bat?
Just to give you, Christopher House. A brief synopsis. It's about this sort of Groundhog Day situation where it's it follows a student named Keiichi Marbura in June of 1983, and he lives in a small rural village in Japan called Hinamizawa, which is based off of a real village but has less spooky problems. And his collection of friends, it's not a harem, but all his friends are female, and it has this very soft, fun, sort of slice of life exterior. It's oh yeah, it's so fun. Moving to a new town, got friends. You have a really quirky club where you play games all the time. And underneath it all, you learn about the village kind of has this ritual every year, and you praising what they call the guardian deity, Oyashiro-sama. And Oyashiro-sama has eventually the story in Higurashi is cut into vignettes, where it's like vignettes are like I say anthology story arcs, where it's like eventually it devolves into learning about Oyashiro-sama's curse, which turns into a murder mystery, and then there's a sort of descent into paranoia and horror and violence, and by the end of it, after it fucks and ends in a gruesome fashion, usually more fucked up shit happens, it just starts back again at the beginning of June, like nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of keeps repeating this cycle. And the original 06 was kind of fun. It's like right at the onset of the digital anime age, so it doesn't like look terribly pretty if you go back and watch the original.
Well, I saw it being advertised on Funimation. I was like, this looks like it's from the 80s. like hard, big eyes.
It was originally a visual novel, actually. It was it came out in I think 2002 as from Seventh Expansion was the developer, and it came out as a visual novel. Then Square Enix adapted it into a manga, and then it became an anime. And but what I meant to say when I said it's like different is that the original manga, or excuse me, the original anime, 06 anime, and the visual novel, the game, it's paced a lot more patiently, I want to say. Like it restrains itself, trying to hold back the more gruesome elements and the more supernatural and crazy stuff about the story. And just about, I want to say 3 or 4 episodes into this new 2020 season, it's already like really pushing that shit, and events are happening way faster. And I'm like, whoa, the pacing is much quicker, and I get that. I feel like pacing in like 2020 anime these days, like modern anime, whatever you want to call it, is much quicker than it used to be. Like when I was growing up watching anime, and like especially when I was like an adolescent, like when I was a teenager, it was a lot slower. Like I remember when I finally got like cable when I was like 17, 18 for the first time, being able to watch the Funimation channel and watching a bunch of like backlog shows, and they're a lot slower than I say per average episode plot wise today.
Right, but was that for like an artistic sense, or was that to like give the animation studio
exactly
like a bit more time to draw everything?
It's definitely a little bit of both. I think that writing wise, I think that it could have been stylistically differently. I also think animation budgets were very different back then, and I think that the market for anime is much bigger now, so there's much more money pulled into it, so that shit can be pushed a little bit faster. I digress, whatever the case may be, but the new one's interesting, still following the same archetype, still following the same story, just with a few minor changes, especially in pace, but it's still very good. I recommend it to you. I recommend it to anybody listening. I'm looking forward to watching the rest of it and seeing what type of changes, because it's got me slightly on my toes after I've already watched the show. So it's definitely an interesting sort of psychological horror that I think most people would be into, especially during these dark times.
Okay, it's just a month, man. We want the dark times to go away after that.
Yes, but I guess we'll ping pong back and forth. Tell me, Christopher, is there something that you have been watching that you'd like to share with the class?
Yeah, sure. So I got 3 shows that I briefly looked over before we got to this podcast. I don't know.
Are you gonna bust your whole load for me? I could have done like 6.
No, I'm just talking about the first one. Chill your fucking, calm your tits. We're gonna start with a show called The Day I Became God. And I'm gonna be real, I don't know why I even looked at this, because it looked like a fucking plain ass protagonist with lolly style god character, and they get up into shenanigans and stuff like that. But what it turns out, the show is centered around a young, I don't know, we don't really know her identity fully, but she claims to be a goddess, but she goes by the name Odin, but her name is Hina Sako. And she just appears in front of our main protagonist, which is Narukami, who's like a senior in high school, prepping for college entrance exams. He's around that age. And she shows up and she's like, hey, I'm a god. And he's like, that's cute. And she's like, well, you know what else is cute? The world's ending in 30 days.
I'm seeing stuff from it right now. At least images.
So there's only like maybe 2 or 3. I've seen 2 episodes. There might be a third one out by the time this podcast goes up. But really it's kind of right now centered around Sako trying to help Narukami gain the affection of his childhood friend, who is like this kind of stone-faced, I don't even want to say tsundere because she doesn't act like mean towards him. She's just very like cold towards everybody.
And this is pertinent to the end of the world, right?
And well, because there's 30 days, and what else do you do? Because he goes, you know, that's really cute that you say that the world's gonna end in 30 days, but I gotta go study. And she's like, fool, why would you study when the world's gonna end? It's
okay, so it's one of these like sort of futile situations where nothing can be done about it, and it's like, all right.
And there's an ongoing timer. Like the first 2 episodes take place over within 6 days.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it's all going to come to a climax or if it's going to end well or not. I don't know. But it's like, it is real hard cringe right now. And not for the reasons you think. It's because the cringe is from Narukami trying to gain this girl's affection and her just being like, nah, or I'm sorry, I'm just not interested, like over and over and over again within 2 episodes. And it's like the second episode, they try to set it up where it's like, oh, your sister needs to film a bunch of scenes for her film class, so why don't we have you 2 be love interests? And I shit you not, they do like abridged versions of Armageddon, Rocky,
nice,
and
we like that.
Another film about that. Like, and each time Narukami is playing the male hero, but the childhood friend is just like talking like she's not even in the movie or the scene. So he's like, I gotta go to space, and she's like, well, how are you gonna go to space? And he's like, oh, I have a rocket over there, and she's like, no, those are fireworks. And it's like, oh my god, bitch, get the clue. So it's a lot of cringe in that factor, but I don't know if it's going to continue being that way. Well, that was kind of it was kind of a little fun little side diversion. The only other thing to make note of is that the goddess Sako, or Odin as she likes to call herself, she is omniscient, so she can predict the future perfectly, and she has shown that she can actually predict the future perfectly. It doesn't turn out the way that Narukami often interprets her predictions, but like for example, he's like, well, I want to impress her by beating the entire baseball team. So she's like, okay, cool, I can just predict every pitch. And it's like, cool, that's awesome. And so it's like, the first one's going to be a ball, and then the second one's going to be a strike, and then the third one's going to be a strike, and then the fourth one's going to be a strike. And it's like, wait, but doesn't that mean I'm just out? And she's like, no, it'll be fine. And then he does it, and that exact thing happens, and the baseball team's like, okay, we beat you, bye. And it's like, what?
It's like, it's not useful. It's just fucking,
it's not, this is not useful. But that's kind of the point, I guess, is that it's all pointless to a degree. But
it's all determinist.
So if you are a fan of like Office-esque, the show The Office-esque cringe, then maybe this one's kind of up your alley. But like, other than that, so far it hasn't shown to be anything else spectacular.
Well, the key visuals look nice, and that Odin bitch looks like she prints money on the figures that she's probably producing eventually. But yeah, no, I'll watch anything for a few episodes. And this doesn't sound too bad.
It's not terrible, but it's like, I'm not a big fan of cringe either, and I was not expecting the cringe. So like, when she shoots him down in that first episode, I was like, okay, it's one and done, and the rest will be about him just living his life in the last 30 days. But no, it just continues to try to be that, and it's just like, oh,
yeah, it's just like a silly end of the world rom-com, it sounds like. But I mean,
it might be.
There are worse concepts I've watched. Yeah. One stranger one. Not really stranger. I've mentioned it before. It's Iwa Kakeru Climbing Girls. That's the one I'm watching right now.
Oh God.
So here's the thing about Climbing Girls. I had tentative expectations going in, and even now, having
when Brando, I'm gonna interrupt you. When Brando says, "Here's the thing," it's like the lifeline before I jump off the cliff of the conversation.
Now here's the thing.
It's like,
fuck you. I'm not even gonna fucking listen to this.
No. Yeah.
But no. So I'm caught up 3 episodes in, and the first episode's okay. Like it establishes the story, the idea very, very quickly. It's fun in the sense of like it's very cute. The main character, whose name I cannot remember right now, but
that's okay. She is generic, optimistic.
Yeah, generic optimistic girl. She's a big gamer. She's a big otaku. She's like a competitive.
Oh, she's an otaku. I see.
Yeah, she's like a competitive gamer, a puzzle gamer who's like won trophies, very hardcore, and she can't do that anymore because it's dragging her grades down. So, she studies her ass off. She gives up the games and gets into a high school that's like reputable. But she's like, I want something to devote myself to now, though. And rock climbing becomes the new puzzles that she enjoys to play. And she's got really good eyes for it because, her brain is acclimated to puzzle solving. So
yeah, because rock climbing is basically Tetris at the end of the day.
I mean, yeah. I mean, in a way, however you want to frame a problem.
It's not. That is a sarcastic comment.
Here's the thing, though. It is a problem-solving sort of mindset that she takes into it. And I like it. Now, here's the thing that you're not going to like about it, that's only escalating each episode, is the Cheesecake Factory. Is that I anticipated it being...
the title card is like 4 shots of different cheesecake. And here's the thing.
I anticipated heavy cheesecake, but...
I am not one of these overly Protestant-ness, like, all attractiveness is bad sort of thing. Don't get me wrong.
But
I just get there's an oversaturation at some point. And I'll bring this up later in another show I'm going to talk about, but like it definitely turns me off, if only because it becomes really hard to watch with people.
I agree.
And I know I say this having proclaimed Kill la Kill as my second favorite anime, but like I don't know, I feel like earlier Trigger does it a little better than others. Maybe that's just bias. I don't fucking know.
It's definitely biased, but that's okay. There's some sort of shamelessness about Trigger, but like we don't have the time. But
we don't have the time. We literally have another podcast about it.
Yeah. And so with regards to Climbing Girls, it's like it starts out episode 1 is pretty tame in that department. It's not so bad when it comes to the cheesecake. So I was like, oh good, it's a lot more restricted than I thought. But it is very basic in concept and execution and plot. Like it's not terribly clever in any capacity, but it is quick and it's very poppy. It's like it's the equivalent of eating like popcorn. Like it's not really satiating anything about me.
No,
it has zero nutritional value essentially.
But it's not miserable.
But it is not a miserable concept.
And that's what we need now.
It is a light.
It's not miserable.
It is a light snack. It is not something that you will be deriving any sort of profound meaning out of. But it is not terrible, and it is lightly entertaining, and that's what I'm enjoying.
But these are also 20-minute episodes, correct?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
But the buttery cheesecake is getting thicker with each episode, and
pun intended.
And we will see how harsh they push that on. Because the same thing for me. It's like I don't mind looking at fucking tits and ass. Like it is what it is to me. But when it's to the point of like distracting from like anything else, like this is the only thing that you're pushing, then I could just go watch hentai. Like, like I didn't have to be lied to when it came to like.
For some people, it's more that I think they enjoy the ecchi factor.
Yeah, the illusion.
More, but it's a two-way streak as well, because it's like, for one thing, it's already I mentioned earlier that it's hard to watch with other people, and B, on this podcast, it's hard to like advise other people look into it, because it's just
I don't mind advising people to go watch it.
There's nothing to talk about.
I'm just gonna let them know what they're gonna be seeing. Like, look, this is this show in particular, very light in concept. I think it's fun. It's cute. The characters are all they're all pretty basic. Like they don't have a whole lot of depth. There's like the main character girl who's just light, optimistic, trying to figure out something, finding a new passion. There's the hard ass who's basically her her sidekick, not her sidekick, but like her not even rival, but like best friend character developing. And then you have like the really competent senpais, and that's about it. And
yeah, I mean, it heavily reminds me of How Heavy Are the Dumbbells You Lift.
Yeah.
It has that first episode that's like all about the reason for her doing it. And I had high hopes that it was like, yeah, of course there's going to be cheesecake at the end of the day, but I had hopes that the rest of the plot would be centered around her struggles, and you'd get kind of this Ippo-esque moment of like her finding her purpose in this new hobby that she has.
Yeah.
And How Heavy Are the Dumbbells You Lift really goes into like just hard shenanigans, and
that like doubles down on comedy. Like Climbing Girls isn't even comedy,
Yeah, right, but I mean, it does the shenanigans for the sake of the cheesecake as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
not for some of them.
It's cheesecake with comedy flavoring.
All right, well,
drizzling.
enough about cheesecake. We've had enough cheesecake. Tell me about one of the other animes that you've watched.
All right, that's fair. Well, on the opposite end of things, I watched a show that has 2.5 stars on Funimation. And I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. Granted, they're only like 4-minute episodes each, and there's only 2 episodes out.
Okay.
But it's a show called That Is the Bottleneck.
That is the Bottleneck.
That is the Bottleneck. And what it is...
Man, you really just started watching random shit on Funimation.
Yeah. What it is that it's a show about a guy that works at a like 24-hour supermarket.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And you never get to see his face. And I don't mean in the sense that it's like faintly obscured, but you can see his chin. I mean that if everything from above his neck if it's not obscured by a sign, then like there's like a cat enveloped around his head so that nobody can see his face ever.
I got you.
For some reason. And the art design reminds me a lot of like Saturday morning cartoons in the newspaper. It has very minimalist animation. And there seems to be a sinister element about it, and despite everybody saying, oh, how nice of a guy he is, and you see him helping that old lady across the street and yada yada, but every episode somebody finally sees his face and they go, ah, and then they disappear. And it's really funny, if only because of how many different ways you get to see them obscure his head. And like you were saying with the popcorn analogy, I'm okay with shows being popcorn if they're really, really short. Like these 4-minute shows are like perfect for that aspect. But when it gets into like 20-minute episodes of a 12-episode series, it's like, that's more than popcorn, man. That's eating McDonald's every day for a week. That's like...
Now you just have a problem.
That's just bad for your health. Whereas this is just kind of short, sweet, and fun. And so I don't really know why it's getting all the hate that it gets. But I would say check it out and give it maybe a better rating. Because it does not deserve 2.5 stars. That is for sure.
Okay. Well, yeah. I don't know if I can re-rate it after I use your Funimation account, but I'll try. But yeah, besides that, I'm just going to blaze through what else I've been watching. I've been watching the new season of Haikyuu. Obviously, it's kind of like the second half of the 4th season, because it's still labeled to the top. But that's been fun to come back to. A lot of these anime that I've been watching, we watch with the family, the Philly crew you abandoned. We watch it all together, so it's usually just me, Jeremiah, plural, like we all kind of watch them together, all of them straight. So we watch Climbing Girls, then Haikyuu, then whatever the hell. So it's always fun. They cried, plural, and Jeremiah cried at the latest episode of Haikyuu.
Of course.
They're so moved. They cry pretty often, honestly, watching Haikyuu, and I don't blame them. It's a very motivation.
Well, they're also sports guys, right? You guys kind of grew up doing sports.
No, only me. They're just emotional.
No, Jeremiah did football.
Oh yeah, Jeremiah did do football. Yeah, but that's not why he's. Yeah. Well, that's not like it's not a deep attachment to sport. It's because he's a weeb. Like there's a difference. But it's still a good watch. Always throw that out there, but I feel like I don't really have to emphasize on Haikyuu. Most people know Haikyuu who've been watching anime or have heard of Haikyuu, so I really don't have to go into that. It's a volleyball anime. But
no, that's all you want to say about it?
No, not really too much else to mention about that. The Moriarty anime, I don't know if you remember, we mentioned it when we were looking forward to the fall season, but there is an anime focused around the rise of Moriarty, the foil to Sherlock Holmes.
I don't remember this at all. Okay.
And yeah, so the Zero episode came out a while ago, and then I saw it. I didn't see a new episode yet, and maybe I have to double check. But I did watch essentially the pilot, and it's good. I qualify that with that tone because I don't have a whole lot to work off of. I've got like a concept. It wasn't exactly what I was expecting. I was expecting sort of the rise of a criminal syndicate, and instead it was sort of just like watching a Sherlock Holmesian episode, but for evil. He basically assists.
So it's kind of like the Hannibal TV show.
Sort of, yeah. Without getting too deep into it, essentially in this pilot episode, he is aware of a serial killer in the city, in London, I believe they're at. I believe they're in London. But of a serial killer in the city that's killing children. And he deduces who this serial killer is and then offers one of the fathers of the victims to kill him. So he captures him so that one of the victim's fathers can get revenge. So this sort of catharsis, sort of pseudo anti-hero vibe when it comes to it. It's very well done. It's well animated. But I'd like to see more of it. I'd like to see how they could develop the character of Moriarty a little bit more. He's kind of like this sort of blonde, pretty boy.
Generic evil blonde guy from Japanese.
But it's okay so far. I did enjoy it. And what I wanted to say, the best thing I've watched recently is an old anime, rewatching Ping Pong the animation about a week or two ago. Yeah, that shit still slaps. The soundtrack, the animation, everything.
This is a Japanese animated feature series based on a Chinese manga, or is it just on Ping Pong? And I assumed it was Chinese.
I'm not entirely sure. I know that there is.
Oh god.
So here's the thing. I know that is actually no. I take it back. I am aware. It is a Japanese manga series because it takes place in Japan. And I know that for certain that it was a Japanese manga off the top of my head.
Oh, okay.
I think that the animation studio may have been Chinese, possibly.
Oh, I had it.
I know that there is a Chinese influence on this, and I'm feverishly Googling it right now just to make sure that I'm not misquoting anything. Yes, okay, so it is for certain Japanese manga published in Shogakukan, and I want to see if it was animated by a non-Japanese studio.
I mean, whether it was or wasn't, it has a very unique art style to it that would make you like.
Oh yeah, it's got this sort of
where it originates.
I love it. It's got like a sort of even dirtier, minimalistic Mob Psycho vibe, where like it's very hand drawn, very bleeding, squiggly lines.
It's intended to look scratchy and rough.
Oh, I love it to death, though. It is.
And with the hard shading, not even hard shading actually. It kind of lacks shading outside of like certain corners. It's really unique to say the least.
No, it's not done by a Chinese studio either. It's done by Tatsunoko. So.
But like moving on, like, so how was your second viewing of this show?
It was good. Like I hadn't seen it in like 5-6 years maybe, like since close to its original run. I know it came out like around 2013, 2014 for the first when it actually came out. So I haven't watched it close to then. So what I enjoyed was sharing it with Alex and Plural. Like they hadn't seen it before, and they're like, "What is this crazy stuff?" And they really lommed onto it and enjoyed it. And for me, it was just a reminder. I always had a very strong opinion of it. Like in my head, it was always like top 3 sports anime, top 10, top 15 anime in general that I'd ever seen. Wow. But watching it again was like, it's very refreshing. It's very like psychological, coming of age. It's like, it really dives into the feelings, especially if you've ever played sports as a young person or pursued like something very, very feverishly in your teenage years. And to sort of, usually in competition specifically, I feel like that it really emphasizes this sort of mental struggle that someone goes through. But more than the sport itself. Like there are elements of ping pong, obviously, in the technical sense on display, but this anime is just so good when it comes to just really displaying elements of introspection, and it looks beautiful.
When you say introspection, like so your main, do you have a main protagonist?
You kind of have two. You have two. You have like these two best friends. One's named Smile, the other's name, like they go by their nicknames. Like one is Smile, aka Tsukimoto, and then you have his best friend Peko, aka, well, Peko's the nickname, Hoshino is his normal name, and Peko is sort of this very bombastic, spontaneous, eats candy all the time, frequently eating junk food, but like prodigy, cheeky, loud, cocky guy. And then Smile is like the literal opposite. He's extremely quiet, reserved, seemingly never smiles, which is what people think his nickname means. But an extremely skilled player, but lacks drive and like any sort of competitive edge to win, until eventually like something in the story pushes him along. So both of them, it kind of parallels their stories together to kind of push the plot forward on both of their journeys, in relation to ping pong, obviously, and how that changes them as people and friends. And all the other characters are interesting. I love all of the other characters. This is OD super god of ping pong in the show, Kazama, aka Dragon. Everyone has a nickname now that I think about it, actually. Then you have one of their childhood friends, Sakuma, who's called the Demon. Then they call this Chinese guy whose name is Kong Wenge. They just call him China. So everyone kind of has a nickname. The more that I think about it, actually, even the teacher, like the sensei for Smile, he used to go by Butterfly Joe.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one.
But like that, so you said it had the introspective aspect. Like how many episodes is it? It's like maybe 12.
Yeah, 12.
Or something. Okay.
It's
so it's like how many matches does it even revolve around? Like maybe.
It's a good point. I don't think more than 10. Probably like no more than 10. Like you.
10. Okay.
Like I think.
Like, cause I have to wonder. That has to be interesting. Like, cause you mentioned there was a season of Haikyuu that like revolved around one match. It was like one match that the whole season was revolved around.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was relatively interesting. But like, you're kind of giving me this idea that like in 12 episodes you go through 10 matches and like
if that
each of them has to have significance.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's very much down the ping. I say 10 at the absolute max, thinking that again it probably covers multiple in some certain episodes, but like there's definitely episodes without any ping pong at all. And yeah, I like both. Like this is definitely the inverse of that idea, where like it's very minimalistic in how much it shows ping pong, whereas in Haikyuu, like I said, that third season is just one match. It's 10 episodes, one single match. There's also in Ukiku Fukirabute, aka Big Wind Up, basically half of the first season, which is like more than 10 episodes, is one match as well. Right. Like where it goes into extreme detail of like the thoughts of and Big Wind Up, obviously it's a baseball anime. It goes really deep into the thought process of each pitch, of each player, of each at-bat, of each, shortstop moment. And same thing with Haikyuu, like you get almost damn near every play, squeezed in, so you can really get this level of detail. Might not be the best word I'm looking for, but it's definitely an element. I want to say like an attention to the mindset.
I mean, I'm also the guy that can sit down and listen to like Jam's hour-long breakdown of like a single Street Fighter match. So like that's kind of where I get my rocks off, where you get into those details of like, oh, this is what matters.
Yeah,
these are
then you would like those, yeah, for sure. They really get into the context and minutia of every moment in it, of like how a character would, or how a person would possibly lose focus for a moment, and like how that reaction would affect the entirety of a situation or a play and all that stuff. And but yeah, as far as ping pong is concerned, very much not that much. I think that it's much more about the emotional and psychological elements of a sports of an athlete, going through their growth and ascension, and how it affects their lives outside of the game, obviously hugely. Like for China, like he's in Japan only because he was kicked off of the national team, and his original goal when he arrives there is to just redeem himself abroad so that he can return. But eventually he sort of and he has a huge element of like resentment and shame. Like he resents where he's at, and like he's very shameful that he can't go back to China, but then he sort of comes round on the whole situation and earns a deep respect for Japanese culture and their ping pong, and that's his sort of growth throughout the show. So for him, like, there's massive external elements for why he plays.
That's a really big thing, especially for those two cultures. The idea of one kind of accepting the other.
Yeah.
So it probably means a lot more when you have that context.
Yeah. But I feel like I've waxed poetic on ping pong for far too long.
Whatever, man. It's our fucking podcast.
This is true. But we're like 30 some minutes in. Did you have another one you wanted to pop off?
Whatever we want. Yeah, I got one more.
Go ahead.
We were talking about the psychological aspect, and I'm happy to say I have found some very, very nice trash.
Please tell me.
It's not like 7 Seeds bad. Like, that's actual garbage.
Yeah,
and that
mega
kind of
garbage
around in some way. This is more like the 6 or 7 that's like, man, this writing's dumb, but they have enough charm and charisma to it that it just kind of works anyway. And the show I'm talking about is ID Invaded.
That's right, you mentioned this one.
Yes, and it released in the January to March block of this year, so it's already completed. So some of you may have already seen it, maybe not. I don't know. I didn't see like any traction about this show at all, so I'd be surprised. I would not be surprised if some people have not seen this. But it follows our main protagonist, Akihito. And that's the only person's name I remember. So that's okay, because he's basically the focus. He gets sent into these supernatural worlds that are constructed off of the subconscious of serial killers. Mm-hmm. And by using clues that he finds in these worlds, his team that are like watching him from like the real world, using data analysis and whatnot, they use the clues that he gets to find the serial killers.
Okay.
So what kind of makes the show land for me, it's not going to make it land for everybody, because to be honest, the writing's not stellar. The writing is Death Note-esque, overly romanticizing serial killers and the views on death in society. It really reminds me of every Hannibal Lecter movie after the Silence of the Lambs.
There were other Hannibal Lecter movies?
Like, yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. There's Silence of the Lambs, and then there's Hannibal, which is like a 2001.
Oh, you mean like just? Oh, I thought you meant like there were like sequels to Silence of the Lamb.
Well, yeah, that those are sequels to Silence of the Lamb.
Okay, weird. Never mind. Continue.
Yeah, you clearly don't know your canon.
I don't, apparently.
You don't, and you're better for it. But so it reminds me of those. It reminds me of like Death Note, where again it just kind of has this like this. I don't want to say romanticized, but it's like this weird idea or this weird world where there are many serial killers at any moment. In time, which is not the case. But point I'm getting at is that what makes the show land for me is this fantasy world, these kind of worlds that are generated by the subconscious of these serial killers. They say that in the show that they are able to identify particles that people excrete when they have the motive to kill or the urge to kill. So that's how they get these particles and they use it to summon these worlds, and it's like, man, this is stupid, but whatever. And so this guy, but in order to jump into this world, you need to have killed somebody. You need to be a killer yourself. So this guy Akihito is a killer. We don't know. I've only seen 4 episodes, so I don't know who he's killed personally. But when he jumps into the world, he forgets who he is. The only thing that they send in there to remind him of that is an image of his dead wife. And he goes, okay, I know who she is.
Yeah.
And I know I need to figure out who killed her. And that's his only drive when he jumps into the world.
Okay.
And going from there, he basically has to his identity is basically that of he doesn't look like it because he's an anime protagonist, but he basically becomes the gruff grizzled dad character.
Oh, okay.
Who's like, I gotta either protect my family or avenge them in some manner, and like that's his motivation pretty much. And every time he jumps into these worlds, he gets to become that person as opposed to the criminal that he is on the outside world. And so you have that interesting contrast along with the worlds themselves, which use like non-Euclidean geography.
Yeah.
So like the first world he jumps into, everything's in pieces. So like places are like buildings are just flying everywhere, and his own body is in pieces, and like he has to bring it together first. And then like the second world is just like a landscape with drills just coming from the sky, and like trees with hanging bodies around. So like it really allows the show to go into these weird places. And that just kind of keeps my attention at the very least. I'm only 4 episodes in, but the show itself has been not stellar, but like more than entertaining.
Well, one thing that I've noticed interestingly, I've been doing a light Google search of it as you've spoken. It's done by Studio Naz or NAZ, and they haven't done much. Like, they're not super old or super young. They're about a 7-year-old studio, but this is their 7th series in 7 years, and it's their only, if not first, original work, which is what I like. I like original animes.
I mean, yeah, it kind of shows, to be honest. None of the characters really stand out. I think Akihito has a decent design, and it's really nice how his fake detective outfit contrasts so heavily with his real outfit.
Yeah.
That's pretty stellar. But everybody else is in like business suits because they're like the fake FBI, more or less. But the thing that it reminds me the most of, and maybe that's why I have a bit of an attachment to it, is the game The Evil Within 2. I don't know if you got to play that.
I know of the game, yeah.
Evil Within 1 is really mediocre, unfortunately.
But
has a lot of issues. But Evil Within 2 goes into a much more interesting concept that actually kind of is similar to this, where you have this fake town that's in somebody's head that your main protagonist has to go through, and that town is infested with serial killers, and the serial killers are making things all wonky because their interpretation of reality is so fucked up compared to the average person's interpretation of reality. And so it allows for a really cool kind of adventure in non-Euclidean space, which is always fun. When things don't make sense and that makes sense, then it's fun for me personally.
Okay, I can see that.
So if you are down for the same type of not cheesecake, because we said cheesecake too much, but the same type of fluff that we were describing earlier, but instead of it being cheesecake, and what would the analogy be for like violence? Like, what is cheesecake but violence?
I don't know, like fighting porn. I don't know, like
cherry pie. I don't know. Cherry pie. Anyway, basically, if you need your, it's not grisly murder. It's not like the Hannibal Lecter show where like they try to show you gore.
If you want your fucking murder porn.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally one episode where it's like a bunch of people on top of a tower trying to avoid getting shot by a sniper, and that's like the tense moment. So like it's that style of just like, oh no, violence and terribleness. So if you're up for that, as opposed to, you know, the other forms of cheesecake that exist in anime, then check out Id Invaded. It's done competently enough, and the show itself has enough cool ideas to kind of carry it. So
one thing actually I found that's kind of not related to Id, but sort of related to Id, the studio Naz, glancing their other projects, they have done some stuff for like music groups, and they did something called It Girl, in 2014 a music video based on a song by Pharrell Williams.
Okay.
I'll have to look into that. But that aside, the concept sounds fun, and from the key visuals that I pulled up so far, looks nice. So I'm always up for something new at the very least.
I would at least give it a shot. If the first 2 episodes don't really tickle you at all, then I don't think the rest of the show will.
I'll let you know.
That being said, I'm only 4 episodes in, but like I would give the first 2 episodes a shot.
If you don't.
But it really is like you really have to overlook some of the statements that come out of these characters' mouths. Like, it's one of these things where it's like they're trying to portray the cast as like hyper intelligent bureaucrats, like competent bureaucrats as well, not like, you know, the real life bureaucrats, but like they're trying to portray them as like these hyper confident, overly intelligent, constantly thinking about the state of humanity type of people.
Yeah.
And it's just so stupid.
And it's all
like,
contrived and sounds pompous.
You never get the idea that these people are actually people. Except for Akihito, who is like clearly this broken person that like just does not care anymore. But the only way the only time you see him caring is in that other world where he forgets who he is and he has to reestablish his character based on the fact that he has to avenge his dead wife. So like in the real world, his wife's dead and he doesn't care and he's a nihilist and he's like, man, fuck all this shit. But in the fake world, he gets to be the video game dad in like Last of Us or God of War, where it's like, no, I will avenge them and blah 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 blah. And it's like, it's interesting that little contrast. That character is just enough to keep me interested. So I also think it's a cool concept or meta narrative that I don't think has been talked about enough, and I don't think will be talked about enough in this show, but at the very least tickles my fancy. So
word
that'll be that.
All right, well, I mean, it's a solid collection. I didn't have anything else I'm watching currently. I'm sure something would pop up in my mind eventually, but at the moment I'm pretty solid. I hope that something else pops up. I've been trying to like you said, like the way you've kind of watched id, which is something, or idea to, you know, I don't know if it's id invaded or idea invaded, but whatever the.
No, it's id because they're talking about the human.
Oh, the human id. Okay, gotcha.
Concept of the id.
Gotcha. Okay, good. So, but.
Yeah, I would give that a shot. To be honest, I think the reason why I'm diving into these like random shows is mostly because like the stuff that gets thrown in your face just gets repetitive after a while, and it's like Crunchyroll is the big offender for that for me. Like,
that's why you've turned to Funimation.
I mean, I think we've both kind of looked at, or you said you were interested in looking at Rental Girlfriend or Rented.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet, but I feel like that's.
And I've seen, because Crunchyroll actually has really good marketing, where what they do is that they show like a 2-minute clip on their YouTube page. Mm-hmm. They show a bunch of 2-minute clips as the season goes on, and what that does is that it's not that hard to find full episodes on YouTube, but it's usually that they're like chopped up in fucked up ways. So that 2-minute clip will then bring up a bunch of other clips in your feed, like from other channels that are like quote unquote pirating, and like that will just get you interested enough. You know what? I should just watch the whole show. And like I feel like I've done that with Rent a Girlfriend, where it's like I heard about the concept, it sounded stupid as hell, and like I saw a clip here, I saw a clip there, and I still thought it looked stupid as hell. And then I've seen more clips, and it's like, man, this show is just like, again, it's more cheesecake. It's more like you have your four. It's a harem show. Like, let's be fucking real. It's a harem show.
Yeah, no, all the way through.
And it's just like it's trying to go with the rom-com concept of like, you know, these two are stuck together because of professional, quote unquote, professional reasons, but he likes her and she doesn't want to accept his feelings for him, and meanwhile there are other girls in the factor, and like it's just like,
welcome to Harem 101.
I've seen this before, you know.
Hey man,
like id, I've not seen anything like id before. I mentioned, you know, The Evil Within 2, but that's about it. And things like that is the bottleneck. Haven't seen anything like that before. So like searching outside my usual circles has been kind of nice.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it, and that's all we can really strive for, finding something new, intriguing.
Because even, you know what? Because even with the stuff that I just complained about right now, what I'm saying is like somebody will eventually like, even if you just say, oh, I'm just gonna not watch anime till I get something recommended.
Yeah.
You yourself got recommended to Rent a Girlfriend, and whoever did is a bad person.
They just have different tastes than you, Chris.
They just have different tastes. No, they have the marketing taste. They have what they've been fed. And sometimes you got to go hunting for your entertainment. And that's what I did.
Well, what if I'm a sheeple?
Gonna continue. Well, then you're part of the problem.
Maybe you're part of the problem. You're a bug in the system.
Yeah. Oh, God. I forgot about Decadence. Alrighty. Do we want to wrap it up here?
Well, we're about an hour in, so I feel like whoever's still stuck it out with us is probably praying for the sweet release. So
the sweet release of the end of the video.
So I'll go ahead and grant you your request, nameless stranger. But that is all I think we have for today. So it's been fun catching up, Chris, talking about what we're watching. We will. What was I gonna say? I guess we'll go ahead and plug the old Twitters, the old social medias. We have the Otaku Remix on Instagram. You've got the if you had a good time, like, comment on what you've been watching. We always love to hear what you guys are and take any recommendations that you've been listening to. And subscribe if you'd like more Otaku Remix content. And what is that Twitter? It's just at the Otaku Remix, right?
Yep, at the Otaku Remix at twitter.com.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, that's all I got for today. Anything you wanted to plug before we leave this?
Nah, I think we're good for today. To all those who made it this far, thank you so much. And yeah, again, give us some more comments, like, and subscribe.
All right, guys. Have a good day. Have a good life. We'll see you next time.